Hello lovelies, today I thought I would bring just a conversation, a ramble about the word of the year, my word of the year. Where do I stand on goals and New Year's resolutions and the word of the year? I love it. I love that period between Christmas and New Year where you can review the year, you can make lists for goals moving forward, making lists and ticking things off or not ticking things off. But I love that whole concept of planning for a year. Now, I am definitely in the majority of people that forgets goals by 2 months in. So I love it. Not that successful at it. However, the word of the year for me was different. I have found word of the year for me is a lot more successful for me than goal setting or New Year's resolutions. So why is the word of the year more useful? I think it's because it's thematic. It's like a filter that can wrap around everything throughout the year, and it's journey focused because it's thematic, whereas a goal or a resolution focuses on the end point. I want to achieve this. There's always an end goal with a resolution. However, with the word of the year, it's not focused on an end goal so much as a theme, as the journey. It's journey focused. So that means if you're a self-sabotager like I am, or you're forgetful and you forget your goals like I do, it doesn't come with that feeling of I failed. A word of the year is way gentler than that. It never at any point last year made me feel like, oh, I failed that, I haven't achieved that. It kept my inner critic quiet. Because it's a theme, doesn't matter what goals you set or what lists you write or what New Year's resolutions you've written down, the word of the year can wrap itself gently around all of those too. A gentle touchstone, a base camp, if you will. So that idea of a gentle touchstone to keep coming back to, no matter what area of life I was in or what goal I was looking at. And that put a lot of safety and self-love around all my goals and dreams for the year. Having that gentle, safe base camp allowed me to not give up and to pick myself up and to start again and to refocus. So it was a gentle touchstone reminder of the journey I'm on and trying to keep me on track, but in a really safe, loving way. It was also a really good grounding force. It kind of grounded me in the intentions that I'd set. I didn't float away from them. I think that image in my head of the word of the year being a base camp that I could keep coming back to, or build a new base camp in this intention, it permeated through all of my intentions of the year. And because the base camp was there, it didn't matter where I was going within that intention, it kept regrounding me in the essence of what I was trying to do. I think to even choose a word of the year, you find yourself at the shadow door. I've got this image of a door that you go to and you open up, and in there are all the things that you need to work on, and shadows and repetitive negative patterns that you keep falling into that you don't understand. If you open that shadow door, they're all there just waiting for you to uncover. And I think to pick a word of the year, we find ourselves naturally at the shadow door. Well, I did anyway, because to pick a word of the year, I had to think, where do I want to move forward? Where is there an intention to do better, to feel better, to be more in line with my purpose? What's stopping me? What do I need to work on? And to be at the shadow door, to even choose the word, you automatically then, with that word as a filter, putting healing onto everything around you, all your intentions, all your decisions, all your actions, every time you fall down, the word comes to wrap itself around like a healing balm. A word of the year naturally is that because you choose it at the shadow door. So what does that practically look like in real life? Last year in 2022, I didn't actually pick a single word. I actually had a phrase for the year, and that was slow living freedom. Now, when I stood and I chose that phrase at the shadow door, I stood there and I thought, where am I struggling? What keeps defeating me in living the life I want? And it was overwhelm and that feeling of rushing, always shoulding on myself. I should be doing this, I should have finished that by now, I should be over there doing this, I should have done that, I should do more, I should do that better. That feeling of racing, when I opened that shadow door, that is what greeted me. So I chose slow living freedom as a phrase to try and combat that feeling of rushing. I think what I did is I looked at that phrase and I wrote a number of things down where I felt that racing. So I suppose it's almost like a goals list. So I realised that my overspending and consumerism and always chasing down the next tarot deck or the next book or the next oracle deck or watching walkthroughs of things and feeling that urge that I must get that when I've got shelves and shelves of unread books and tarot decks I haven't got to yet. I knew that that was one area, so I put on my list a no buy year. As part of that no buy year, I also put a depth year, so to slow down and go deep with the things I already owned. I wanted my physical environment to match what I was trying to do internally, so to give myself space in my outward environment as well as space with my thoughts in my head. So I put decluttering the house down as a goal. Areas like reading as well. I normally set a Goodreads total for 50 books and I'm constantly chasing how much I'm reading. So I brought that list down. I brought it down initially to 5 books and then I upped it to 15 books. I just wanted to take the pressure off. And I think just slowing the racing down by honouring jobs and interests with the correct amount of time, honouring something enough to give it time. I found it weaving its way through my tarot practice. So in my tarot practice, with the intention and the grounding focus of developing my tarot skills but wanting things to feel slower, it was a perfect time to take on the Hallow Quest, to slow things down, to only work with one tarot deck for a few months, to incorporate meditation into using this deck, to give it its appropriate time to stop the rush. So for the first few months of the year, this was virtually my only focus. Daily meditation, path working. It completely changed my tarot practice. It took all the rush out of it so that it felt like a calm, grounding space to come to. This tarot deck alongside the Mists of Avalon Oracle, I've shown these so many times now on the channel, but they were given their appropriate time because the grounding focus was always slow living, freedom to take as much time as I want. There is no other destination to race to. There isn't a I should be over there, or I should be doing this, or I should be working with these decks. I could stay in one place, grounded, firm in the intention of it's okay to go slow. It's okay to honour these decks with the time that I want to spend on them. And then the gentle self-loving freedom to say, do you know what, enough's enough. I want to throw some new decks in to work with. I don't just want to stay with this deck all year and no others. I think with Slow Living Freedom as a lens, it stopped me from going, oh, you failed, you should be just using this deck. And then to go deep with decks that I'd already got. So these were new in my practice for the year, not new to me, because of course I wasn't buying. So the Seed and Sickle, this is a good deck actually to show how that word did slow me down and stop the rushing. This deck, along with the Witch's Wisdom, was used quite a bit to study and to delve into, and one card in particular jumped out at me, this Bluebell card, and the history of the bluebell and finding out all about the bluebell and finding poems linked to the bluebell, and then seeking out Bluebell Woods and returning to Bluebell Woods in the year. All of that study and extra reading and trips out and tarot inspiring me going out into nature, not only really grounding that time spent, but also really healing, getting me out of the house, giving it its appropriate time, slowing it down, having the freedom to set my own time frame, which was a lot slower. I spent a long time just with this one card and it was absolutely glorious, and I think that's because I was coming at these decks with that base camp, that safe base camp, and then the healing nature of the word Slow Living Freedom, that feeling like not only do I want my head to have more space but my physical environment, stepping into the healing nature of, say, decluttering, lessons in letting go, really an important part of the year, which were incredibly healing, not only with physical things but with thoughts. And of course the decluttering process of different rooms really embodied my word of the year too. So I started off with this, the very worst room in the house. This, my spare bedroom, absolutely rammed at the start of the year with a vintage clothes collection, a triple wardrobe one side, double clothes rails floor to ceiling the other, every single corner rammed with clothes that 95% I can't get into anymore. I still can't, don't tell anyone. But I took loads and loads of carfuls of stuff to the charity shop. A lot has been bagged away for smaller days, hopefully. And eventually, on the first turnaround of this room, it became a much more organised and clear double wardrobe room for me and my son. My son's wardrobe there came out so to make room for his drum kit in his bedroom. Then I tackled my tarot room downstairs, which also was rammed with stuff. This was in January last year, where Christmas had seen this room completely trashed, and it was just a nightmare. Now this window alcove now houses my son's drum kit downstairs. So again, the tarot room, it became a teenager's room. But this was the first pass through. You can see the shelves are way clearer. So again, it was a slightly clearer tarot room to start with. It's since become a music room. The piano's in there, as you can see. There's a drum kit in there now. And my son's got his wardrobe back in his bedroom. But it was all doable because of the passes through of decluttering. And things like the mantelpiece, every time I had a spare few minutes, I would clear off another surface. You can see here what it looks like instead. And the kitchen as well, looking at, had pots of garden paint stored. Oh, shelves just falling over with stuff. So I spent quite a while decluttering cupboards and just making it just clearer, easier to clean, and that's just been fantastic, embodying that idea of slow living freedom in my actual physical space. It was just a wonderful part of the year. And eventually the spare bedroom, which I started with at the start of the year, full of old clothes, became my doll room, creating that space of the things that I didn't want anymore, made space for the things that I do want. Who would have thought that by the end of the year my Barbie collection that I hadn't looked at for 20 years would be out of the loft, and I would have my own doll room, a new doll channel on YouTube, and just so much fun making space for the things that we love. But the word of the year, not only making space for things you love, but also making space for curiosity as well. This is the most evident in my reading. It transformed my reading last year. Ironically, my Goodreads page says I've only read 5 books, 5 out of 15. Those are the 2 numbers I mentioned. I even forgot to update my Goodreads. Things got so slow. I read more than 5 books. A lot of them sat here swinging gently on my caravan balcony in my reading chair. And a lot of them were from the library. There was no race to buy new books. Instead, this slow Saturday morning walk through the town past all the seaside gardens, watching the gardens change through the year. Even this gentle stroll to a library, embodying a slower pace, a pace that I loved, with treasures offered up to look at, like this front garden that inspired me all year long. So I think I read nearer the 15 books, but do you know when you read books and you're racing just to get to the next book and you're not actually taking anything in that you're reading? This year that feeling was absent, and this building, the library, was a big part of that for me. A continual bag full of reading books, and slowing down and making notes on my phone or real life notes with a pen and paper about interesting facts or key sentences that I felt were beautiful. It meant that I didn't lose the beautiful nuggets of the books I was reading. Here are just some of the amazing books that I read through the year, which were all library books. Shopping the library, a beautiful, beautiful way to slow down. But slowing my reading down and really honouring the books with appropriate time frames and study, and writing down their beautiful sentences and just savouring them, also opened up space for curiosity. I got curious about the books, like Dylan Thomas. I got curious about his life and the house where he lived, and I did research about that. Ironically, of course, I read a book called Slow as well during the year. But that making space for curiosity within my reading was just amazing. Like this book that I read about the Morrigan, rather than racing on to the next book about the Morrigan, I got curious about implementing some of the practices that I read about at my altar, and I did a couple of months of daily altar work inspired by this book, which saw me dancing daily at the altar for the Morrigan, daily cold showers as well, dedicating exercise to the Morrigan. It just opened up a whole new world of honouring my deity. I got curious about Shakespeare because I live right by Stratford, and I started reading this old vintage copy of Shakespeare that I'd found a couple of years ago in my charity shop. It's inspired me to visit Stratford more. One of the books that I read was actually a study guide, which took me forever just to get through the first little piece. studying The Taming of the Shrew. I got curious about Anna Maria Garthwaite, who featured in one of the books, one of Spittlefield's only female silk designers. This is her house. I got interested in researching Spittlefield and the silk trade. It just offered up lots and lots of reasons to get curious, which of course stopped me from jumping from book to book to book. Instead, it saw me sitting here in my swinging chair, just delighting and savouring every word. Like these two books I read in the year by Charlie Lovett. This book in particular mentioned the Nantios Cup, and I got pulled down the rabbit hole of researching what the Holy Grail is, the Nantios Cup, visiting places locally like this abbey down the road from my caravan called Strata, Florida, which is where it was said the monks brought the Holy Grail from Glastonbury to hide it here. If you subscribe to the belief that the Nantios Cup is one version of the Holy Grail, then this place here in the Welsh Hills is where it was actually hidden. So, time for curiosity. It was amazing. And the reason why, yes, I do want another word of the year. So of course I really want to move forward this year in 2023 with a new word of the year. And having stood at my shadow door, the thing that greeted me was repetitive patterns, repetitive negative cycles. Within those repetitive negative cycles, which I can't seem to extract myself from, there are certain narratives, stories about myself. It's those stories this year that I want to untangle. My word of the year, because of that, is going to be story. So untangling myself from stories that no longer serve. I think my subconscious needs to catch up by disseminating some of those stories and letting them drop, by rewriting them with the new lessons in there. Forward focusing stories, not backwards focusing stories. Hopefully exploring the word story in 2023 will help me to joy chase. But also, I think for me, the word story also encompasses so much joy. I know that my biggest compliment from anybody on here have been the comments that have called me a storyteller. There is something about that comment that always stays with me like a little treasure, a nugget of something that speaks to my soul. Storytelling, whether that be through art, through videos, through writing, it's something that I want to explore. So I can see with my new word of the year, there is a gentle touchstone to remind myself constantly of whose story is this? Where did you get that story from? Is this story still relevant? Is this your story now? Are you holding the pen? So my word of the year, weaving its way as a positive filter through all of my goals. A year with the word story as my safe base camp and touchstone. If you've come up with a word of the year, I'd absolutely love to know what the word is and how you can see that helping you throughout the year. Does it tie into your tarot practice at all? Let me know in the comment section. I would just be really curious to find out. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye.